Velkommen til Artbubble TV, hvor vi har fået Ferdinand på besøg. Og Ferdinand, a.k.a. Kari Korhonen, som er kommet her til Dokk1 i dag. Kari, welcome.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you. Now, Kari, for those who don't know you yet, you write and draw Donald Duck in Finland.
Yes, that's right. For the Danish publishers, Egmont, and been doing that for ages.
But even so, now people do know Donald Duck, but they don't really know your work, and they don't really know you.
Right.
And so we were wondering, and we don't really know much about Finnish comics either, really.
Yeah.
So for
I
you,
don't either.
You don't either. So you just live in Duckburg, literally?
Yeah, that's right. Spend all my time in Duckburg.
But has it been like that always? I mean, even since you were a child?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, in Finland, like most people, I mean, Donald Duck or Dokk1 is huge in Finland. And most kids learn to read from Dokk1, from the Donald Duck Weekly, as did I. And I've been a Disney fan, a Donald fan. I used to collect Donald Duck comics and etc. And so that wasted youth led into this.
So when you say wasted youth, you've basically been reading Donald Duck ever since you were a child?
That's all I did. That's all I've ever done.
And then at some point you started drawing him?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've always enjoyed drawing, and when I got out of school, I was lucky enough to meet some of the people at the Finnish Donald Duck offices, and from there I met the Danish editors, and I started working for the Danish publishers at the age of 19.
That young?
Yeah. So, 25 years.
So for past 25 years you've been doing Donald Duck?
Yeah, Donald Duck. Maybe 15 of it, just the Duck comics. Yeah.
Okay. And do you then do the strips for the weekly issues, or do you do any longer works as well?
Mostly for the weekly. So you call it Anders Anti here.
Yeah.
Here. So if you keep reading that, there'll be my stories in it. All the stories that I do get circulated in all the countries that Donald Duck is published in.
Okay. But getting into the whole Donald Duck universe, obviously since you've been a fan, it was easy to get into the mindset of Donald and his entire extended family.
Sure.
But for you, working on the Ducks and with Donald and everybody else, could you take us through the process maybe of starting a new story?
The thing about the Ducks that's really wonderful is that the universe that Boggs created, mostly Carl Boggs, is so versatile. You've got sort of every archetype of character in there. You've got the rich uncle, you've got the lucky cousin, and it's such a versatile universe that you can basically, if you keep your eyes and ears open, anything that you see or witness can be turned into a Duck story. I mean, it sounds like I'm making it sound very easy. It isn't necessarily, but it's just a question of if you observe a piece of a discussion, your mind almost immediately turns into, what would Donald say about this, or what would Uncle Scrooge say about this? Because you've grown up with those characters, and everybody who reads the Duck comics basically knows how Donald would react to a situation of a plane being late or missing the bus or whatever.
So when you're walking around in Helsinki or at festivals and you pick up snippets of conversation,
it's really
your mind is like a sponge.
Yeah, full of holes. But I sent myself these little emails with just a few words in them, and it's sometimes really hard to interpret what I meant originally. If David says toast not hot, sun. You know, the hell did I mean by that? But usually I can figure it out and turn it into some sort of a resemblance of a story.
And when you do pick up these snippets of conversation, in the same fashion, do you observe people and think, oh, that person sitting right here or walking over there would make for a wonderful character of this archetype or just this type, either in the background or maybe as something else?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, but also it turns the other way around as well. You sort of start thinking that guy's just like Donald today, and don't want to talk to him necessarily. He's in a foul mood.
So you observe that in your friends as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And associate that immediately with the ducks.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. It's a very strange existence.
Now, you said earlier that you didn't know that much about Finnish comics growing up. How has that evolved as well? Because when we see Finnish comics, we are seeing more coming into Denmark, and there is a blossoming market, isn't there?
There is a very strong comics scene and comics culture these days. When I said that I don't follow it as much, it's just the fact that once you start doing something for a living, it no longer is your hobby. I mean, you just have to get away. You spend 8 hours a day drawing comics. The last thing you want to do on your free time is to pick up a comic book. I mean, it's just... therefore, I haven't kept up as much as I should. I'm not the right person to ask. Don't look at me like that.
Well, it's a shame, but it's understandable. I mean, as you said, you do work at a drawing table, or do you, when you're working, do you start by just thumbnailing out the story immediately? Do you do a manuscript, or?
Well, the way we work at Egmont is that you first write a little synopsis, which is just a brief one-page description of a story. And an editor reads through that, and if it gets approved at the editorial meeting, then it gets turned into a story, which is a script with little thumbnail story drawings. We call them scribbles. And once the script is edited, then the drawing starts. I'm one of the few people who draws the stories that or rather I draw all the stories that I write. Well, most of them, usually, and I've written a lot of stories for other artists as well, and that's really fun because you see the story one way, and it's the best way to learn if your scribbles or your story sketches go to another artist who does his stuff, do them. And that's a wonderful way to learn, and that's a wonderful collaboration. I really enjoy that.
And when you start working, and now you said again, you work bound to the table for 8 hours a day. How long does it take you to finish, say, a page? Do you do all the colours as well, or?
No, the colouring's done in-house, and I'm lucky enough to have a very good inker. So together with my inker, we can do a 10-page story, draw a 10-page story in 10 days.
Okay, so about page a day.
Yeah, so 2.5 weeks for a 10-page story. That sort of time. Yeah.
Okay, and now again, you said there's in-house, so there is a lot of things once you've gone through the script stages and the approval stages.
Right.
Have you ever gone through those stages where they've censored you in any way once they've approved a story and then they weren't quite pleased with it? Do they go back often to do changes and such?
No, not really. I mean, the thing is, the reason why there are the checks on the scripts and on the synopsis is that it just saves time if there's something in the stories that doesn't need to be there. It's easier to delete at the synopsis stage. It just makes everything a lot faster. So, and censorship is a terrible word. And there's really none of that. As long as you remember that it is a kid's comic, and I think kids grow up too fast these days anyway. So we want to make stories that are enjoyable to adults as well, but keep it kid-friendly.
Yeah, and that goes back again to the snippets of conversation that you hear, because there will be things that are not appropriate for Donald Duck.
Yeah, I suppose so, but I don't think that almost all stories can be told in the Duck universe, but just keep in mind that it is a comic book for kids. There are certain things that kids don't have to bother themselves with.
That's true. Now, you haven't just done Donald Duck, because you've also done the Angry Birds comics. And possibly everybody knows Angry Birds by now as the computer game and the film that's been made. But you did the comic version of that.
Yeah, the very first ones back in the day. It was mostly for the Chinese market, but they got published elsewhere as well. And there's actually been a Angry Birds comic book out for years and years now, and most Disney artists like Giorgio Cavazzano and others have drawn stories for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Disney artists have. It's quite interesting work. I haven't done any in years, but yeah.
And being in Disney as well, do they ever ask you to do other work other than the Ducks?
Well, I'm such an old hand. I mean, I've done all sorts of things, worked on all sorts of characters. I used to do Winnie the Pooh stories and covers, and I quite liked that. I missed that a little. And back in the day when The Lion King came out, I used to write Lion King stories and Timon and Pumbaa and things like that. And this year, just for Finland, these won't be published in any other countries, but it's the 100th anniversary, the centennial of the country, Finland.
Okay. And
we're doing little one-pages with all sorts of characters, so I've gotten to draw a bit of Mickey Mouse and Horace Horsecollar and that sort of thing, and it's been great fun.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, celebrating the centennial in that comics fashion.
Yeah, so we've done 52, or we'll have done, once they're ready, 52 little one-page gags that all have to do with just a little bit of something of Finnish history, but told in a Duckburg universe.
So one page for each of the 52 issues of the year?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, in Denmark, when they are doing the Duck stories, they have, in order to make it more appealing, perhaps, more interesting, they've started including real-life people as characters in the Duckverse.
Yes.
Have they done that in Finland as well?
Well, Finland uses most of the... I mean, as I work for Egmont, the Egmont stories are the basis for the Finnish magazine as well. Finland picks and chooses stories, which stories they want to use by themselves, certainly. But I haven't seen any of those stories in the Finnish weekly, so I'm not quite sure.
So that could be because they're specifically Danish.
Yeah, that must be because Plus, I understand that I'm not sure how it works, but the new I'm not a big fan of putting sort of very modern celebrities into the stories.
Right.
For my stories, I shy away from that because the fact is that hopefully, in years to come, these stories will still be read. And I'm not entirely sure that all the celebrities will be household names. All the celebrities that appear in those comics. So, will it make it harder for somebody to read the comic, let's say 20, 30 years down the line and say, well, who's this guy then? You know, if it doesn't make sense to him, the story is sort of dead. That's why the wonderful thing about Disney comics is that if you pick up a issue of Walt Disney's comics and stories, or the Danish version of it. This is mid-50s. You can still read the stories and enjoy them. Just as enjoyable as the ones written today.
That's exactly it.
So
Isn't it?
they're timeless, hopefully.
Yeah.
And that's what we aim for.
And you're absolutely right in that fact as well, because I remember sitting as a young boy, aged 5, 6, 7, and reading the stories from the 50s, from the 60s,
cool.
that my stepfather had bought himself. Yeah,
That's it. Same here. Yeah.
So, in terms of that ageless, all-encompassing kind of story, how do you yourself have a favourite artist or a favourite writer throughout the Disney era, the Donald Duck era?
Well, we're all sort of children of Carl Barks. We have to be. I mean, he was so prolific and created most of the universe by himself. So we all look up to him. I was lucky enough to meet him back in the day, and barely got a word out. I was so in awe of this man in his 90s back by then. So Carl Barks certainly, but Don Yipes is an incredible artist who draws in any style, and I was lucky enough to work with both Vikar and Branca, write stories for them. Wonderful gentlemen, alas, no longer with us, but they were the duo that I grew up with. Back when I was a kid, it was either Branca stories or Vikar stories in the Donald Duck magazine, the first stories of the magazine. And I adored them, both of them. Just wonderful artists.
Do you... they've all been collected as well, in different kind of bigger books where they brought the different stories together.
Right.
I don't recall having seen one from you.
Yeah.
Is that something you would like one day, perhaps, to have one of these, the big book of Kari?
Yeah, well, I've had, I think three collections published in Finland, and one in Germany, but none in Denmark yet. I don't think that they have the Hall of Fame stories, the Hall of Fame books anymore. I think they discontinued.
No, I think they discontinued those. Yes.
The series, yeah.
Well,
But it would be
a real
nice,
shame.
yeah. But the thing is, I mean, that is an exercise in humility, collecting stories for these collections, because I've been told I'm not the only one, but I absolutely hate looking at my old stuff. I mean, it's 3 years is the absolute limit, A story is older than that, it's like, it's just can't bear watching them.
Is that because your art style evolves, or is it that constant artistic search for?
Yeah, I hope it is. I mean, I hope it's a sign of learning new things and seeing things in a different way. Or it might be, devolving. Well, how would I know? I just, it's just, you look at an old story and you can't help but see the mistakes and nothing else.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I'm told I'm not the only one, and thankfully one gets better. And if you were happy with everything that you've done and see no room for improvement, I mean, that would be a terrible way to be and work.
That's true.
So it's always the next story. The next one, I'll get it right, I promise.
And speaking of next stories, as our final question today, if you were given free rein to work on any Disney character that you hadn't worked on, so I'm excluding Winnie the Pooh and Donald Duck, but giving you the rest of the Disney universe, do you have any particular character that you would love to work with?
Oh, good grief. Well, with the standard characters or sort of standard universes, I think I've done a bit of everything, but some of the film characters would be fun. Some of the later films, I can't really answer that question.
Well, maybe you can next time you come to Denmark.
Oh, I'll think about it. I'll give it a lot of thought, and the next time you'll interview me, I'll have an answer for you.
That sounds good.
Wonderful.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.